Actually, Sunday can make comments, and perhaps Sunday may also need to come up here, so we could answer, so they could receive their questions and respond to them. I'm just quickly going to run through this. This is what we also presented at the last AGM. It's the same thing. The staff analysis, the view, the staff comments on the particular proposal. Okay, so I think we've already gone through this before, so we don't need to repeat this. I'm just going to, so for legal says there's no significant legal issue for this proposal, and then that brings us to the point where we open the floor for questions. Please, when you ask a question, please make it very brief, straight to the point, and if you can do it in 1 minute, maximum 2 minutes, please. But before you ask a question, I'd like to ask if Sunday have anything to say on the presentation that was just made. Otherwise, I will open the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I think Andrew has covered most of the points, but just let me underscore the fact that why there is no proof to say that this is the way IP resources are growing feet and walking out of the continent. It's a stark reality now that they will grow feet and they can move out of the continent. And so our motivation for retaining them still recognizes academic institutions as the best custodian for our resources, which can be used for teaching and research and for helping the generation to come. That is a very worthy investment, because really these resources belongs to everybody, including those of us now and the generation to come. So it would be an investment. In terms of the financials, we're not asking that the rates be reduced. We are just asking that the resources should be made available to those who can use them. And right now, they're sitting in the pool in Afrinic does not generate income for Afrinic. It's when they're out there that it becomes income. So the impact is going to be positive, not negative. Last but not the least, if people want to endow into a university so as to get access to their resource pool, it begins to make a lot of sense to me, because then the universities will be clever to keep raising the bar, making that investment much, much worthwhile. I would like to see $2 million to go to a Nigerian university than go to an IP address broker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that quick summary. Now the floor is open. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you. My name is Arnaud Amelina for Togo Rare and Rare member. I would like to speak in English, in French, please, because so I invite you to use the head.
Je vous invite à étudier.
Je vais essayer.
I will talk in French. I would like to know, I would like also to apologize that I insist on the fact that we have to take into consideration. Can I go further? Can I continue? Yes. I would like to insist on the fact that we should take into consideration on the point of view of the majority. This subject was treated in the mail list, and the list also has given its opinion on it. The minority that we are here, we cannot take decisions over the majority who rejected this idea. It was a marginal idea, and it was not fair. we've seen in the presentation of Andrew the ratio in Kenya. Can we be given the ratio in Central Africa or in West Africa? We cannot base ourselves on one example. We have to generalize on Africa. So I wish that we take into consideration the point of view of the community who rejected this idea, and that we find a better idea so that we can go forward.
Andrew and Sunday say something, to forget the exact words, but which implied that it was impossible or at least difficult for these higher educational institutions to get the space they need. I'd like to question that. I think that the existing policies already allow for needs-based allocation. Perhaps it would be useful to reduce the amount of documentation or bureaucracy involved in applying for space, and I would support that, but I think it's not correct to say that they can't already qualify.
Adam Nelson. One of the things I noticed, first of all, I think this is a great proposal, so I'm very excited about this. I think it's good for higher education institutions, especially when you hear that they have one IP address for the entire institution. That's depressing. Although I concur with the prior speaker that there are probably solutions that could be made to make it easier for anybody who wants to get, let's say it's 24, or 23, or 22, to do that with minimal justification. But I wanted to also bring up the point of virtual universities, which are now becoming a large segment. In Kenya, you have the Africa Virtual Online University. There's a lot of virtual universities appearing, which potentially could have 50,000 part-time students. Is there an opinion or a thought on how to deal with that situation where you have virtual universities sprouting up in Africa, and how do we allocate those IP addresses fairly? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Shen, and I'm from the Ghanaian Academic and Research Network. I'd like to suggest some sort of compromise or a way out, if it's possible, taking from the fact that Andrew initially said that this policy was for the higher education institutions that didn't have the IP addresses, that already didn't have IP addresses, and it was meant to increase that community to have IP addresses. And what I would suggest is we make it very explicit in the policy that this is for new members who don't already have any IP address resources as one. Two, that this application must be done through the local research education network of that country, so the area of the country, so that at least some validation can be done, and then at least we can know which institutions that are benefiting from this. And if there's no national AIRN, then the regional AIRN could help in identifying those institutions. And third, it should be a one-time pass. So once you qualify for the IP addresses under this provision, the second time, even if it's just one IP address, then the current modes of requiring additional space would apply. This would ensure that those that don't have it would have an easier means to getting it, and it also ensure that the growth of it must be justified through the current means.
Okay, just because this questions face, and it's important that we don't miss any of the questions, so I'm going to be taking it bit by bit. I would like the authors to respond to these questions that they've received already. However, before they respond, Adam, you mentioned something about virtual universities. Is your question asking whether virtual universities will be considered in this proposal, whether it covers them?
Yes, will virtual universities be part of the higher education institution definition?
Yeah, because I'm also understanding that by virtual universities means that they will be most likely running on different networks, and they will just most likely be connecting to maybe a server or something. So it's actually, that's the complication, and that's why you're asking that question, I guess. All right, so I'll ask the author to respond in that regard.
Okay, let me try and take some of these, and Sunday will take some of them. Firstly, Alan, when we said that institutions were having trouble qualifying, if I said that they can't qualify at all, I apologize if that was the impression that I gave. It has become very, very difficult, though, for institutions to qualify for space, particularly where there are wireless networks involved. And I will give an example that I have given before. University of Pretoria went out and applied for a /15. They have 60,000 students on that campus. They ended up getting a /16 and a /19 because even though the campus was rolling out 4,000 wireless APs, there was a constant argument over concurrency of people on the campus, concurrency of devices that the students were carrying, and all about the concurrency numbers, which currently the policies are silent on. And that creates a very subjective allocation system where the host masters have actually got no option but to review this documentation in a subjective manner. And that is unfair on the host masters, because it leads to angry institutions that are shouting lots. It's unfair on the institutions who have no way to actually justify the concurrency. And all in all, we feel that the ratios that were proposed, there were discussions in the community. We allowed for less, we allowed for more. We were as fair as possible as we could be there. We are still open to talking about exactly what the ratios numbers are, but we want to remove the subjectivity out of the process. With regards to the virtual universities, I'm going to let Sunday respond to that. With regards to the suggestion of applying for space via the national academic networks, I really believe that that is a very good idea. And I think both myself and my co-author would be quite happy to make that amendment. With regards to restricting it to new members, here we have a little bit of a problem. And the reason for that is because while yes, it ensures that those who don't have can get some, it also would restrict those who currently have a single /24 worth of PI space from Afrinic for getting the resources that they actually need. So that is a little bit of a problem. However, to say that they can use this policy one time on their student base and staff base and not again, that we would agree to and support, because that stops people coming back and coming back and coming back. It is, however, problematic on the new members. I would welcome a suggestion from the floor if somebody has a way to deal with those institutions who have minimal space at the moment and need more and want to make a one-time use of this policy. And then Sunday, can you comment a bit about the virtual universities?
Okay, the first comment was about not being fair to the community because the community had rejected this proposal. That is not true. The community did not reject this proposal. This proposal did not achieve consensus on the mailing list. In fact, the co-chairs ruled that it did not achieve consensus, and that is why it is back for discussion at this face-to-face. So it's not fair to say the community has rejected this proposal. It was not rejected on the first comment. Regarding the virtual university, the way the proposal, virtual universities, the way the proposal is structured, they'll still be able to benefit. I still have the floor, unless I've been ruled out.
Please go ahead, Sonny.
Thank you, Chair. So regarding virtual universities, we'll want to deal with them as occasional or part-time students per the proposal, but the idea of having the regional research education networks validate such members is a very welcome one, because it means we will again not see people appearing to help Africa by setting up virtual universities just to ship out our IP addresses. I think those are the two I need to react to for now.
Okay, thank you, Sunday. I hope those responses were okay for those that asked them. Then I'll take the next. Please, the line is long. Kindly be very brief.
Okay. Haitham Nakhal, Telecom Regulatory Authority of Egypt. So I have 3 questions. First one is, do you have a statistics about how many HIEs requested more IP than they had now and be rejected or suspended by Afrinic? Because we will not go for a regional policy based on a single case or one country case. Second, in your proposal, you mentioned that the HIE should table a plan for deploying IPv6. So what if he put a plan but not deploy any IPv6? What will you do with it? Third one and last one, according to the existing policy, now there are 50% discount for universities and HIEs. In your proposal, you didn't mention anything about fees. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, please.
My name's Mark Elkins from South Africa. I was very fortunate to go to an IGF meeting in Baku, and the one thing that they got terribly wrong was they actually had less IP addresses than the number of participants, and that was an absolute disaster. I am totally in favor of this policy. I believe that a higher educational institute should be able to go back more than once. Because universities do grow and they do get bigger. Therefore, they should certainly be able to justify going back to this policy more than once. I believe that Afrinic is sitting on a honeypot at the moment, and if we can reduce the amount of honey in that honeypot, then I believe that life will become easier for us in this area. I fully support this policy,
Okay.
and I haven't changed my mind. Oh, lastly, in Zambia, in the hall, like we are now, there was overwhelming support for this policy. And it was literally the voice of 2 or 3 people that were against it. And unfortunately, it was almost the same 2 or 3 people that replied on the mailing lists afterwards, which was very unfortunate because the overwhelming majority didn't do anything at all. So I believe in order to get this through this time, there needs to be enough activity from the people in this room on the mailing lists afterwards in order to help carry this policy through.
Okay, thanks for that very important comment, Mark.
Hi, everyone. My name is Osman Tessa for Research and Education Network, Wakren, West Africa. I'm from Niger. So maybe take your headphone. I will speak in French. Je vais parler en français. Assez rapide.
C'est bon pour, is okay for everyone? Concerning this proposal, as a member of the network of research and education, the proposal is not holistic, and we have the impression that it was conceived by a team that sees that the institution of research and higher education institutions are cut from the research institutions. As concerning the production of knowledge, the number doesn't make the quality. The first element that makes that the element should be rejected. The fact to forget the main actors, which are the institutions of application of research, is that it's not holistic. And if the 2 sides that made the proposal denied to participate to the day of Afrin, they could have seen what it's been projecting concerning the needs for the higher education. So I am calling that this I'm calling up that this proposal is been overtaken, and I don't think if you need to amend it, maybe you are going to propose as something that we need in order to start up. Thank you. Avant le dernier.
I want to be sure that the translation was very good. From what I heard from the translation, you said I hope you have your headset, the person that just finished speaking now. So you're saying that WACREN, which being an education network, is not in support of this proposal. If I get you right, it's not, the proposal is not holistic and WACREN is not in support. As an individual? Okay. Okay, as one render, which is member of, okay. All right, thank you.
Hello, this is Benjamin Ashen again. With the question of what Andrew raised earlier on with the institution that was previously even assigned a /24 and now want additional resources. My suggestion is that if the institution was able to get the IP resources initially with those constraints that were there before, then I think they are still in the position to justify the increase, because initially these constraints were not there and they were able to get those resources. So they should be able to do that. Forgive my ignorance, but I can't seem to understand how a virtual university hosting a couple of sites out there would then need to issue IP address to students. I mean, I can't seem to understand that. I don't know, because I know it takes a couple of IP addresses to host the server, and your students are not on campus. They are scattered all over the globe. So I don't know. I can't seem to get how that works out.
Okay, thank you for that. Please, I will ask the authors to respond. Please, authors, be specific and straight to the point. We want to make sure we get enough comment as much as possible. Thank you.
Hi, before Sunday responds to the next point, I'd like to respond to to the gentleman from Niger about what he said with regards to the policy not being holistic and numbers don't make the quality and comments such as that. I need to point out that when we considered this policy, and when I first authored this policy with my colleague Sunday, I was actually in the employ of the Ubuntu Net Alliance network, and we looked at the feedback that we'd seen over time from various universities and various campuses in the various national research networks around the entire Ubuntu Net Alliance region. If I remember correctly, when Xamarin first got connected, and unfortunately the gentleman from Xamarin isn't here, I was there at the launch, and the entire research and education network of Zambia with all the universities was holding a single /22. Now, there is an argument to be made in the academic world about the NRENs allocating IP space to the members. That can work, but unfortunately the NRENs are typically a lot, and I mean a lot, poorer than their members. So why we said the universities go direct with the vetting of the NRENs is because, typically speaking, an individual institution can then take that budget themselves, whereas an NREN has to carry the combined budget of all of the universities. That will disadvantage the entire country as a whole. Let the institution make the effort and get the space. With regards to the fact that numbers don't make quality, I 100% agree. However, having number resources do enable certain types of research which are simply not possible to do behind layers of network address translation, particularly if you start looking at when you start looking at some of your EVLBI experiments where you're transferring huge amounts of data over unicast data streams, when that stuff starts natting and you start talking about 5, 6, 7 gigabit of data flowing through NAT streams, particularly data that is heavily time sensitive in the EVLBI arena, those NATs can do some very, very funny things, and it creates a problem. So the resources might not make the quality of the research, but they do make the research possible to start with. And then Sunday, if you can comment on the next one.
Somebody raised an issue about there existing the 50% discount for academic institutions right now. The policy does take into consideration this discount and says that any discount that exists still applies by the policy. Yeah, definitely. My co-author is reminding me that if Afrinic removes the discount, that would equally be removed from the policy. Then there's a question about virtual campuses and why they would require IP space. Obviously, if in their networking plan, they intend to give students access via VPN, certainly they would need IP addresses. So if they believe that the public network is not secure for their students to connect to the campus, they can deploy VPNs to achieve this connectivity, and obviously they would need IP addresses for that.
Sorry, excuse me, Sunday, thank you for that. Your last comment, you said you can deploy VPN. So
if they want to.
Okay. All right. Anyway.
Just one more note, there was another question about the original /24 and saying that they got the original /24, they can get more. This is not necessarily the case, because the original /24 may number a switch or two and have loads and loads of NAT behind it. Seen that plenty of times. A small DMZ that's got a couple of mail servers, the switch and the entire student base is behind NAT. Why the universities have been unable to demonstrate the correct number of switches and physical devices when they have deployed their entire campus on Wi-Fi and all they can show is 200 odd Wi-Fi APs. Never mind the fact that each AP can be holding 50, 60, 100 students. So it becomes far more difficult the moment that there is a Wi-Fi environment to actually justify. So the /24 is not necessarily an indicator that more space can easily be acquired.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Please go ahead, Owen.
Owen DeLong, Hurricane Electric Aaron Advisory Council. I wanted to address a couple of points. I'm neither for nor against this policy. I consider it mostly unnecessary, but also mostly harmless. So I'm neutral in terms of whether it should be implemented or not. In terms of addressing MOOCs or virtual universities, I would think that a MOOC or virtual university that is not providing access services to its students should be specifically excluded from this policy if implemented, because they don't have students using addresses, therefore they don't have justification for it under this policy. If they do want to use a VPN to provide access services to their students, I would think that would trend towards more of a 1-to-1 ratio rather than the 5-to-1 ratio or more that is considered in this policy. based on students with multiple devices walking around a campus with Wi-Fi environments and such. So I think that even there it's kind of a questionable application, and perhaps they should go through the more traditional policy process. In terms of multiple requests, I think that universities that are under this policy should be able to come back and get additional space under this policy. And I think the way to handle that, quite simply, is to have the policy express that a university can qualify for space up to a total aggregate of held space that matches the requirements set forth in this policy, across all their holdings, rather than stating that it's a one-shot deal and it's based on this one measurement at one time. That way, as they grow, they can come back for more. A university that currently has less than they'd be entitled to under this policy can come back to make up the difference. And it's kind of a generic solution that seems to fit not only the immediate situation, legacy situations, but also future situations as well. So I think that might be the simple way to address it.
Thank you very much. Alain?
Alain Aina speaking on my personal capacity. The version 3, draft 3 of this policy proposal, from what I'm reading on the slide, has been submitted on the 26th of July last year. So I assume it's the one we discussed on the mailing list, the one we discussed the face-to-face meeting, etc., up to the last call. So what is the problem statement here? It looks like we are now trying to rebuild the whole things again. So what is the exact problem statement here? Rebuilding the same, the system from scratch? What is the problem statement?
Thank you. Professor Nee?
I'm Nikweno, speaking on my behalf, though I work at University of Cape Coast. My comments will be in the context that we are stewards for the resources we have. So though I'm sympathetic to the end user, I have some concerns about the policy. So I'm not addressing the needs of the end user, but I have concerns about this. I don't like the idea that just because I have it, I should give it away. I'm a steward, so I should do it judiciously. The other thing is that I don't like using policy to work what seems operational. If we're not able to get the operational system working, let's fix that. But I don't want to make a policy to bypass it because you are not able to get the allocations you need, so I make a policy to bypass it in one time. No, I don't. It doesn't seem like we're building an institution. I want to build a strong Afrinic. Okay. The way it's being defined also, you need to make sure you can be equitable. There are some latecomers and there are some early risers. I don't want the early risers to take all the numbers, and if it turns out to be very important, then the latecomers don't have any. So you need to pay attention to how you're going to work that issue. Perhaps quotas will come in, I have no idea, but it doesn't feel right as it is for me. I also don't like to hide the network plan documentation. Okay? I want to know that the people are really making effort to keep a documentation of their network plan. The universities should be making an effort to keep their network documentation plan. And especially since we expect them to do better, they are supposed to be our teachers, leaders, and they should maintain a good network plan. So I'll be concerned about using a ratio and therefore they hide their network plan. Okay, it encourages not to keep the plan. I want to encourage keeping the plan. That's one of my concerns. I also believe that the universities can get more IPs than the quota gives them if they want. We are very sympathetic. We should give them any amount of IPs they need to do their work, but they should follow a uniform process. They should follow a uniform process. So, maybe the higher education institutions should make a different policy, not this one. So I'm not exactly in favor of this one as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ni.